All right, so we're diving deep into the life of Kris Kristofferson. Buckle up, because this is one of those stories where, well, you think you know it, but then you realize you're just scratching the surface.
Exactly.
We're digging into the AP obituary here. Kris Kristofferson, singer-songwriter and actor, dies at 88, and let me tell you, just that headline alone doesn't even begin to cover it.
You know, it's funny, when you think about Kristofferson, the word defiance keeps coming to mind.
Defiance, how so?
Well, I mean, you look at his life, right? Rhodes Scholar,
Right.
Golden Gloves boxer, Army helicopter pilot. It's not exactly your typical career trajectory, is it? You don't often see those things on the same resume.
It's like he was collecting incredible life experiences, like they were going out of style. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he tops it all off by becoming a country music legend. I mean, it makes you wonder, what was it? What was he searching for?
And that's where, understanding the weight of that Rhodes Scholarship is so crucial. It wasn't just about, academics.
Right.
It represented a very specific path, this world of traditional success that, for someone from his background, must have seemed almost preordained.
Yeah, it's like there were these two Kris Kristoffersons, right? Like on the one hand, you've got this Rhodes Scholar, seemingly destined for a life of, I don't know, prestige and accomplishment.
Right, absolutely.
But then there's this other side, this pull towards like the raw honesty, the grit of country music.
Absolutely. And that tension, that push and pull, that's essential to understanding Kristofferson. I mean, he chose a path that directly contradicted those expectations, those assumptions people had about him. And you hear that in his music, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You hear in the stories he tells, the characters he sings about, there's this grit, this searching, this sense of like everyday people just trying to find their way.
And speaking of defying expectations, what about that story about him working as a janitor
Oh, yeah.
at Columbia Records? Can you imagine?
Well, Bob Dylan was recording Blonde on Blonde, no less.
I mean, the audacity.
Right. Even in those early days, it seems like Kristofferson was drawn to those who, challenged conventions, those who weren't afraid to sort of color outside the lines a little bit. Yeah, almost like he recognized a kindred spirit in Dylan, someone else who'd kind of buck the system to make their own mark. It makes you wonder, though, what did he think about this janitor leaving him songs?
Who knows, right? Maybe that's a story for another deep dive.
That's for sure.
But I think what's clear, even then, Kristofferson had this unwavering belief in his own path, even if it wasn't the path that everyone else expected him to take.
And that path, that belief in himself, it led to, well, a songwriting legacy. It's just incredible when you really think about it. I mean, yeah, me and Bobby McGee, everyone knows that one.
Right.
But to really get Kristofferson, you gotta go deeper.
Oh, absolutely. Me and Bobby McGee, it's iconic, of course, but his catalog, it's vast, it's diverse. I mean, we're talking about a songwriter whose work, it transcended genres.
Yeah.
Covered by, Janis Joplin,
What?
Johnny Cash. I mean, what is it about his songwriting, do you think, that resonated with such a wide range of artists?
I think, it goes back to that authenticity you were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, there's this raw honesty to his lyrics, a way of capturing, like, the struggles, the triumphs of, everyday life that it just cuts through everything else.
Absolutely. And the stories behind some of these songs are just as fascinating. Like, did you know that Me and Bobby McGee was actually inspired by a Fellini film?
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it's true.
See, now that's the kind of trivia I love. Okay, so Fellini film, me and Bobby McGee, lay it on me.
So he was watching Fellini's La Strada, right? Which is this incredibly poignant film, itinerant performers, and he mishears the name Bobby McGee, and boom, that sparks this whole narrative.
Wow.
And it speaks volumes about his creative process, right? Like finding inspiration in like these unexpected places, weaving together, high art and lived experience into something profound.
It's that mix of like poetry and grit that makes his work so captivating. And speaking of captivating, we got to talk about the Highwaymen.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, come on, you're talking about Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings,
Wow.
Willie Nelson, and of course Kris Kristofferson. Talk about a lineup.
Talk about a collection of talent. But the Highwaymen, they were more than just a supergroup. I mean, they represented this spirit of rebellion within country music.
Right.
This real challenge to, that polished Nashville sound. And each of them, in their own way, had challenged conventions, right? Paved their own way.
Total outlaws.
Absolutely.
And when their voices blended, it was magic. Kristofferson himself actually said that He wished he'd cherished that time more, that he knew how special it was. But, when you're in it, right?
Right. You don't always realize it at the time. There are recordings of them on stage, and you can feel that camaraderie, the sheer joy of making music with your friends, your closest friends. It's
I
electric.
get that.
And it's a good reminder that even for legends like that, it's those human connections, the shared passions that truly matter. But, we can't talk about Kristofferson without mentioning his acting career, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is a guy who he was as comfortable on a movie set as he was on a concert stage. And he didn't shy away from challenging roles either.
That's for sure.
I mean, you're talking, Alice doesn't live here anymore to Blade. Come on, talk about range.
I think his acting success speaks to that same authenticity we see in his music.
Yeah.
Whether he was playing, a down-on-his-luck musician or, some weathered lawman, there was this inherent believability to his performances.
It's like he brought his own lived experience to those roles. Those hard-won insights. Those are the things you can't fake. And it wasn't just, his art where that kind of authenticity came through.
Yeah.
He really lived his life on his own terms. And that included, his political activism.
Right. And, that's one of the things that always impressed me about Kristofferson was that real consistency of his convictions. We talked earlier about him choosing, music over a more kind of traditional path.
Yeah.
And you see that same independent spirit, that willingness to sort of stand up for what he believed in no matter what. It ran through everything he did, even when it meant, taking an unpopular stance, which he often did.
And there's that quote from him talking about how people would get mad at him,
Yeah.
right, for pointing out these uncomfortable truths about the world.
Exactly.
And it's like he couldn't not speak his mind.
Yeah.
Even if it meant ruffling some feathers along the way.
Yeah.
What do you make of that aspect of his personality, that kind of refusal to back down from what he believed in?
I think, more than anything, it speaks to this really deep sense of integrity that he had. I mean, it would have been so easy for someone in his position to, just play it safe, avoid controversy, but that just wasn't Kristofferson, was it?
No.
He used his platform, his voice to advocate for causes he believed in, to challenge the status quo, and that takes guts,
Absolutely. So, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we? I mean, Rhodes Scholar, soldier, songwriter, actor, activist. It's almost hard to believe it all fits into one life.
Yeah.
What do you think is like the most enduring legacy that Kris Kristofferson leaves behind?
I think more than anything, it's a reminder that a life well lived, it's not about, checking boxes or following some preordained path.
Right.
It's about having the courage to be true to yourself, even when it's difficult, even when it means, defying those expectations that other people might have for you.
Absolutely. And sometimes those unconventional paths, they lead to pretty extraordinary places. If you're out there listening and all you know is, me and Bobby McGee, do yourself a favor and dive into the rest of his music.
Oh, yeah.
You will find stories of heartbreak and hope and struggle and redemption, all of it told with this depth of feeling that you can't fake.
The real deal.
The real deal. Well, folks, there you have it. Another deep dive, another fascinating life explored. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that matter.